guys, this is Chris George coming to you from NAMM 2011. It's the last day at the show, and the new YJM100 has been really popular throughout the show. So what we thought we'd do is, while we're here with our own camera crew and the designer of the amp, we thought we'd give you an inside look at some of the features of the amp. Already on forums there's a lot of stuff starting to come up, questions and stuff, so I'm joined by the one and only more machine than man Santiago Alvarez, and he worked on this amp with Yngwie for the last 18 months, and we're here now. So if you're not familiar with the amp already, you may not know that, as well as the amp being a 1959 out of Yngwie's collection, it's also got a boost circuit in there, and also noise gate, reverb, and internal power attenuation as well. So first up, what was it like working with Yngwie, and how did the whole thing start?
Oh, it was awful, you know, nightmare.
Obviously.
Yeah, it was very easy. Yngwie had it very clear from the beginning what he wanted. He approached us with, I want this. Then was basically a couple of prototypes working with him. He recorded last album with it, came with a couple of suggestions to tune the sound, and that's it. We got it. He's using it live now.
Sure. And the thing is, like, sorry.
It went really easy, quite fast actually.
Yeah. Because when we have amps in development, we can't say anything about them, which is like, for our job, that's the most frustrating thing. But as Santiago just said, Yngwie actually recorded the whole of his last album with the prototype of this amp. So, and he's been using it live now for some time as well. So, his actual amp, like the starting block that you used, the actual amp itself, was one of his out of his collection, was it?
Yeah, it was one of the early 70s 100 watts Plexi 1959 amps, which is actually, many people ask why 100 watts when Yngwie is known for using a 50 watts amp. You know, actually asked him that question, is that he uses both. His favorite probably is a 50 watts, but for live sound he uses 100 watts and a 50 watts, so he gets the punch from the 100 and the compression and the singing from the 50 watts. So he requested specifically to have the 50 watt switch, which takes 2 tubes out of the circuit.
Right.
I'm kind of biased it a bit different to compensate for the 2 tubes.
Right, so tell us about and it's a question that I get asked a lot, how exactly does the attenuation work in terms of how is it different from a master volume, let's say?
Okay, the attenuation, what it does is it reduces the voltages on the power amp. So technically you have a low power amp output power, you know. So low output power amp.
Right.
And we can go from 0.1 watts till 100 watts. So you can distort the power amp at really low volumes. You don't have to crank the full amplifier. So imagine that instead of having a 100 watts amplifier, you have a 1 watt. So you crank it, and you have the distortion from the output valves.
Okay, right.
The master volume goes before the power amp. So when you turn down the master volume, what you are doing actually is cleaning up the power amp. You're not distorting it. So you lose the compression. Sure. So that's how it works.
And as you said, this amp's got the addition of the 50 watt switch as well. So anytime just the press of a button, it takes out 2 of the power tubes.
It takes out 2 of the power tubes, and also in that case, if you are using it in 50 watts mode, if one of the tubes goes out of circuit, just gets busted or whatever, it switches automatically to the other free tube.
Cool, and also, it was the same deal for the AFD 100. That was, but it was designed for the Yngwie first, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, the first amplifier we designed with that technology was the Yngwie Malmsteen amp. Yeah, he requested to have an output power control, so he can play smaller venues without having to crank up the amps. Because in the past here we had the problem that have to do a clinic or whatever, and he cannot put the wall of Marshalls, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which is something that's been interesting saying to people, is that because the AFD, you know, we're on more of a time scale with that, to get that out in the space of a year. You know, that's how it ended up on the AFD. It was just lifted out of the Yngwie in the first place. So, all right, so let's talk about the reverb. It's digital reverb. Is it based on any particular type?
It's a plate reverb that Yngwie also told us. He uses it. He requested it again because in dry venues or so, he always plays with reverb. Even his monitor mix in live, he uses reverb. he needs that.
Okay, and the boost section, it's been talked about quite a lot on forums already. We've been looking about what exactly the boost is. Was it kind of Yngwie's? Did he have a vision for the boost that he wanted?
Well, that was the easiest part because Yngwie was been always very particular of the kind of booster he has been using. So he just said, that's it.
Right, okay, cool. And it was just kind of...
It's a solid-state booster that goes in front of the input one only.
Sure, yeah, because if you plug into the other side of the amp, it doesn't... None of the
inputs, the second inputs, there's no booster amp. But you can link and you can boost both channels at once.
Cool.